everybody. Today, on the Sexpert interview series, I have a fellow Sexpert, Monica Tanner, joining me today. You might know her from her podcast or from the amazing challenges that she does. Monica is a wife and mother of four amazingly talented and wonderful children. She was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, attended University of Texas at Austin, go Longhorns, where she earned a bachelor's degree in sociology and child development. She has a podcast called The Brighter Side of Marriage, where she touches on a variety of marriage topics. And I've known Monica for about a year now. I came across Monica's work while looking for speakers for my Get Your Marriage On conference. And I really like Monica's style. She's really upbeat and bright. She's spunky, super creative, and loves helping couples getting more out of their sex life. Monica, thanks for coming today.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here.
I want you to tell me about your story. Like, how did you get interested in helping couples get a better sex life?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I, like you said, grew up in Dallas, Texas, and my parents were fantastic people. But they did announce when I turned 12 that they were getting a divorce, which absolutely, turned my life around and changed it in many ways. And so from the time I was 12 until about now, I have been obsessed with what makes marriages strong and lasting. And so I've kind of been on this quest my whole life to figure out kind of the secrets to success in marriage, right? And and following my parents' divorce, my mom, she kind of went into this whole sort of awakening process where she was trying to figure out who she was and her place in the world and all of those things, which I assume you would do after something traumatic like a divorce, right? And so this is the part of the story I know you love. She moved up to Oregon, where they have very loose laws about clothing. And part of her kind of spiritual awakening journey was to join a nudist colony. And so as a teenager, and I was like very, you know, developing still, I had the chance to visit these nudist colonies, and it what it did basically, my mom my whole life kind of just taught me to be very, very comfortable with my own sexuality. Like it's just your body, right? We all have them, and they function, for a purpose, and it's not anything to be embarrassed about or to blush about, right? And so
Right.
I kind of grew up with this very comfortable sense of my own body, and which has really helped me, I think, in marriage for sure, but also helping couples be able to kind of tap into that, a little bit more sexual side of marriage, which is really, really very important to be able to share yourself completely with another person. That often requires taking off your clothes, which is a very comfortable and easygoing thing for me for a lot of reasons, but definitely got me to where I am. I don't think that there's a lot of um, people that can help married couples that are so comfortable with just being naked in every sense of the word. So
That's great. That's great. So how do you like were there any turning points or big trend hinge points after you're married perhaps that helped you realize like your sexuality was a big blessing to you in your marriage, like in a big way?
I don't know if there was anything huge. I do remember though, I mean, sex always kind of came easy to me just because it was such like so openly discussed in my family life growing up. But I do remember a time after I had my third baby, and I would get postpartum anxiety really bad after each of my children. And so after my third baby was born, I had had experience with this, and I knew the drill. I was going to go in and get on some medication, but I really didn't want to stop nursing this baby. And so when I went into the doctor, I said, "Is there anything I can do? Is there any way that I can avoid getting on any type of medication? I just want to see if I can do this naturally." And the doctor was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, you can exercise and eat right. And to be honest, if you have better sex, more frequent and better sex, it releases the same types of chemicals in your body that these medications are meant to duplicate.
Uh-huh.
So he's like, I mean, you could go that route. And of course, my husband's sitting next to me going, yeah, let's go that route. Like, that sounds great. And so, I mean, I think that was probably the first point where I was like, oh, yeah, like sex is not only good for me physically, but mentally and emotionally, and in our relationship as well. So it was kind of like the first time I went, huh, there's really something to our sexual relationship, and it needs to be nurtured and all of those things. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. So when you coach men and women, you tend to take a sex first approach to strengthen their marriage. Can you talk more why it's sex first approach?
Yeah, so I actually have these 3 laws that are they're kind of relationship laws, but I call them kind of the 3 laws of the sex first getting a little tongue-tied, the sex first approach. And honestly, they're kind of like laws of being happy, really, but also very much understanding who you are as a human and how your sexuality, meaning your gender, how you identify, as a woman or a man, and the unique kind of perspectives, challenges that all of that brings, because your sexuality is very much a part of you. And so I think one of the biggest um, pitfalls, maybe, or challenges that we come across in growing up is that our parents prepare us really well for the social aspect of ourselves and the academic aspect of ourselves and the physical aspect of ourselves, right? But there's this big piece of ourselves that is our sexuality that's really, really important, and it doesn't get properly developed in a lot of our upbringings. And then we kind of get thrown into the world where there's all of this negative messaging we get from Hollywood or romance novels or the porn industry, or just popular culture. And so sexuality just gets this really bad rap. And so it's very difficult to grow and develop this very healthy sense of our own sexuality. In fact, for many of you listening, as I'm saying sexuality over and over and over again, you're probably blushing like, oh my gosh, like what are we even talking about right now, right?
Right.
Because it just gets this really bad reputation. But it is so, so, so important to develop a really healthy sense of our own sexuality, of our preferences and our ideas and our opinions and all of the things around who we are, not only as a woman or a man, but as a mother, as a wife, as anything that we would identify in our lives, right? Sexuality is a really important part of that. So my 3 laws of the sex first approach are, number 1, you are 100% in control of okay, wait. First law of the sex first approach is that the only thing you have 100% control over is yourself. So in any given situation, there's all different types of variables that include your spouse or the weather or the economy, all these different things going on around you. And the only thing that you really can control is yourself. So it's best to learn about yourself and how you can, manipulate yourself to be able to handle all the other different circumstances around you. The second law of the sex first approach is that um, we are 100% in control of the experience we're having under any given circumstances. So the weather can be anything, the economy can be anything, our spouse can be anything, and we are 100% in control of how we experience all of those variables around in the environment. And then the third law of the sex first approach is that our spouse's only job, or our partner in life's only job, is to be 100% themselves. And we, can manipulate those first 2 laws in order to love and cherish and respect our partner, our spouse, exactly the way that they are. So, obviously, much. we could dive into that much deeper than we have time on this podcast, but those are kind of are the three laws that I teach. And once you understand that, you can kind of get all the rest of it.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is you're not in charge of your spouse's sexual development. They are. It's their
Exactly.
responsibility.
100%. Yes.
Gotcha. That's pretty profound. I think a lot of mistakes or frustrations in marriage, butting heads happen when you kind of cross that boundary too much. You take too much of another person, or you don't take enough responsibility for your own stuff. Like it goes both ways.
Yeah, that's a perfect interpretation of that.
That's great. So, from your coaching, or whatever, are there any stories you can share of people you've helped that really went through these three steps process that helped them really develop their sexuality to be a better mother, husband, whatever person?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I do love, and I always change the names to. I don't know why I like to talk about Bill and Hillary so much. I don't the Clintons, I don't know. Anyways, but whenever I talk about different couples that I've worked with, I give them
They're
pseudonyms.
always Bill and Hillary, huh?
Bill and Hillary is like the most popular. So let's talk about Bill and Hillary. So Bill and Hillary were married and they had 5 children. And Bill had a really, really, really hard time holding down a job. So much so that with 5 children, they were forced to move into his parents' basement. Hillary really struggled with this. She had a very, very, very hard time being at all attracted to Bill. She really blamed him for, this lot in life where, she was having to go out and find a job to support the family because she didn't feel like he could do it, and it was just a lot of there was just a lot of resentment and blame and frustration. And obviously, she wasn't attracted to him when she was feeling all of these feelings, right?
Oh, right.
And so, we really, working with Hillary, it was like such an incredible journey that they went on together. But really working with her to learn about her different locus of control. So I like to think of it in 3 concentric circles. So Hillary can control her circle of control includes only her, really, right? Her thoughts, her opinions, her attitudes, her behaviors, her choices. And then right outside of her circle of control is her circle of influence. And that kind of includes, people that are close to her. And outside of her circle of influence is her circle of concern, which includes Bill and her children, their financial circumstances, and all the different things that they were experiencing, right? And so, what we've learned about Hillary is she was spending a lot of time in that circle of concern. She was very worried about their finances and their living situation, and what Bill was doing or not doing, and how it was affecting their children, right? And the more time she spent in that circle of con- concern, the smaller and smaller her circle of control really got, right? She was kind of a slave to these frustrations that she couldn't control. And so what we did with Hillary is we learned how to focus more of her attention in her circle of control, in what she could do and what her thoughts were about what was going on. And as we did that, her circle of control began to grow and her circle of influence began to grow, and it began to kind of drown out those things that she couldn't control. And lo and behold, as her thoughts and opinions about Bill changed, Bill actually changed and their circumstances began to change, and their family situation started to change. And it was this, Bill didn't actually do anything. It was Hillary and how she experienced her life. And that just created this huge, she became attracted to him. She became proud of him. She helped him find his way again. So I love the story of Hillary and Bill. It's probably my biggest success story.
That's great. And how fortunate Bill is to be married to a woman like Hillary. Even if Bill never made the right changes in the end, how lucky he is to still have had someone that didn't give up on him, to give him that
Mhm.
chance. I think that's a fantastic story, and that only happens when you start with yourself. Like,
Mhm.
so many couples, like, wanna change their spouse. They want them to, like, you hear sometimes of, complaints of a husbands saying, "I wish my wife was more sexual or desired me more," or, "I wish my husband would, you know, pick up his clothes more and, not spend so much," or whatever the complaint might be. You can't just sit and change your spouse. People talk about, "Hey, let's work on our marriage," and so they sit down together. One of them starts first, and they start rattling off things to improve their marriage. What they really are saying, "Let's fix your half of the marriage. Let's have you do these things different that bother me," thinking that'll solve their problems when they really need to start with themselves. I really like that. That's great. You do a lot of things. You help entrepreneur moms balance their own business uh, goals and their family too. Can you share a little bit on that? We live in a time in the economy where more and more people are stepping up to like do their own little businesses now. There's a lot of stress when uh, like entrepreneurship is hard on marriages,
Yeah.
and you yourself are an entrepreneur, your husband is entrepreneurial. You've had this unique story. Can you share any tips for entrepreneur spouses on how to keep things together and not let the stress of everything like pull the couple apart?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most difficult things about entrepreneur life, I think, is being the spouse of an entrepreneur. Because as the spouse of an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have the vision. You don't have the day to day. So for an entrepreneur to be able to share intimately their thoughts and desires and vision and their insecurities and their challenges and their wins and the things that drive them, I think is one of the most intimate ways you can share your life with another person is to be able to show your dreams and your goals to them. So I help passionate entrepreneurs balance the demands of marriage, motherhood, and entrepreneurship in that order. So I firmly believe that your marriage comes first, your children come second, and everything else comes third. And but it doesn't always look like that when you're starting a business or growing or scaling a business, right? Many times a lot of your energy is sucked up, your time and even financial resources are sucked up in this passion, this business, this thing that you're trying to create and put into the world, right? And so what I do is I help passionate entrepreneurs prioritize their marriage so that they can crush their business goals. And it's something that I learned and earned myself along my entrepreneurial journey. My husband and I started a business together, and then after I had my third baby, I pulled myself out of that business and eventually learned that I wanted something for myself. Like had I was really passionate and about marriages and helping people with their marriages and in creating this business for myself kind of went through all of those steps of trying to figure out that delicate balance of marriage, motherhood, and entrepreneurship. They're all hard. Marriage is hard, motherhood is hard, entrepreneurship is hard, but you choose your hard, right? You choose which things that you are going to put your energy towards. And so in learning and earning all of those things, I became really passionate about my message, and I truly feel like to have it all, that we can have it all, that men and women, entrepreneurial or otherwise, can have it all, which means you shouldn't have to choose between your dedication to your family and your passion for your message. So I teach skills and strategies to kind of balance those things out and allow you to have everything. And incidentally, that this applies to your audience is, man, when you are intimate on that level and you are sharing your dreams and your goals and supporting each other, your sex life gets really, really good.
To like if sex is knowing each other intimately, like I that'd be great. In fact, let's speak on this for a second. There's like different layers of sex, right? There's just on the physical level, like chasing orgasm, there's like an emotional connecting piece, but then there's like this higher level, which is like really sweet and deep and connecting. That's hard to describe just in words. Like, um, and you've done this course on training in the art of sexpionage. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you help couples move to that highest level?
Yeah,
I
I
also
love.
want to hear about your 007 program too.
Awesome. Well, training in the art of espionage really is the skills and strategies that helps you kind of ascend, like you talked about, to that more transcendent level of communication. It's that it is hard to put in words, you're right, but it's that there is nothing in between us, not physically, not mentally, not emotionally, like we are one, right? And so and training in the art of espionage is learning about who you are, like becoming very comfortable with your own sexuality. And there's a lot of differentiation in that. There's a lot of, it sounds, kind of counterintuitive, but the more independent and, kind of confident that you get in your own self and your own sense of self, the more available you are to share those things with your partner. And that's what makes life so sweet and passionate, is when you have this really developed sense of who you are and what you have to share, and then you willingly share it with your partner. So that's kind of training in the art of sexpionage.
Let's talk on that just a little bit more. I want to double click on that.
Yeah.
So, how do you develop that strong sense of self? Like,
Yeah,
what are the
that
steps?
Yeah, that's becoming. That is bringing your goals and your dreams to life. So really I say entrepreneurship, but it can be anything. It can be whatever, like the way I say it is I feel like God put something on my heart. It became my passion to help married couples feel this close to each other, right? So that's kind of my passion, is what God put in my heart. I created a podcast and a business out of it. And the more I get into my business and podcasting, the more I develop this kind of courage to speak my message, and this confidence that even if I'm, even if it doesn't go the way I think it should go, that I'm still valuable and that my message is still important, right? And being able to communicate those hopes and dreams and wishes and failings and wins with my spouse, and then connecting on that level, and then having the commitment to not only my family but also my message, and then in being able to resolve conflict within all the conflict that arises in all of those pillars. That really is differentiation. That's really becoming solidly who I am. And my husband does the same, right? He's passionate about very different things. And I always say this is one of my favorite kind of sayings, is stop stop believing that your spouse is not supportive of you if they're not passionate about what you're passionate about, right? I'm passionate about internet marketing and intimacy. My husband is not. Those are not his things, but I'm his thing, right? And working out every morning and every kind of sport that ever was, my husband is very passionate about those things. Those are not my things, but he's my thing. And so it's very possible to be very passionate about your spouse and your marriage and your union without being passionate about the things that each other is passionate about.
Gotcha. That's great. That's great. I I cut you off there. Thank you for diving deep in there. Uh, talk about like more about training the art of sexpionage. Why did you call it sexpionage? Is there like a spy theme behind this or something?
Well, you know this about me, Dan, right? I love to make things just kind of fun. Like, I think the spice of life is taking the boring, mundane things and making them a little bit more exciting. And what is more exciting than a spy, right? So espionage, the word espionage is kind of like spying and lying on your enemies, whereas sexpionage is sharing and connecting with your partner in crime. So I love the idea of being able to progress through levels of understanding, like spy training, because spies are not born knowing how to get maneuver through every crazy situation ever known to man, right? They train, they learn these skills, they hone in their skills and get better at them, right? And that's kind of how we are as spouses as well. You're not born a good or bad spouse. Like, you learn these skills and you hone them in, and then you all of a sudden can maneuver through all of the challenges and, sticky situations that life sends your way. And that's training in the art of sexpionage. It's taking these skill sets that you need to be able to, I like to picture like the long hallway with the lasers, right? So that's
Right.
kind of life. We're trying to get through life, and there's all these lasers, and you're doing back bends and like curling around, like getting through all these obstacles in life, but you're doing it. You get to the end together. And that's what's so fun about training in the art of sexpionage.
That's great. And some of the homework I remember is like going undercover undercovers,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is really. And then, yeah, like the highest badge you can get in your program is a 007 award, where um, each of you have, big O meaning orgasm for 7 days consecutively. Then you get that 007 status. It was
That's
really
it.
clever how you put
Thank
spice
you.
things and made, yeah, like what you said, you make the mundane things really fun.
Yeah, it's creating that bond, right?
Yeah,
That 007
Bond,
bond,
James
right?
Bond. Very clever. That's great. Very clever. All right. So, in fact, that's kind of why I created Intimately Us. It's all about making sex fun and helping couples get out of ruts. Can you share, maybe in the last few minutes we have together, some specific tips you might have to couples that might be in a rut?
Yeah. So, let's see. So let's stay with the spy theme. One of my favorite things is to create some code words and some code phrases. So
Uh-huh.
I have my couples go on a 007 kind of date. So it's a code name date. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go someplace where you can really communicate really well, and think about your life. So think about your experiences together, whether it was a challenge that you overcame together, or an inside joke that you created, or something like that. And you want to develop kind of these code names or code phrases, kind of this language that is unique to you. So I did an interview earlier today. I'm going to share her code language. So she told me this story about how they were living with their in-laws, and they kind of were at home, and there was no kids. The kids were at school, and the in-laws were both gone, and so they had this opportunity for this afternoon delight. And so they took this opportunity, and one of the parents came home and kind of caught them, and they were like, "What are you guys doing?" And they're like, "We're watching football in the back room with the door locked," right? So kind of their code phrase now is, like, "Hey, we should see if there's a football game on or something," right? And that's the way they can communicate with each other in front of their kids, or at a party, or in any situation. They know exactly what they're talking about, but nobody else does. So I love those types of code phrases. So that's one way.
That's great. Yeah, I like that.
Another tip would be to have a date where each of you picks like the least desirable thing that you kind of have to do. So for me, it's cleaning bathrooms. I hate cleaning bathrooms. It's like my least favorite thing to do, and I can't even get myself to pay someone to do it, because I'm like, there's 3 boys in my house, and like, I'm going to pay someone to clean a bathroom, and someone's going to pee on the seat like seconds later. I'm going to feel like I just literally lit money on fire. So like, I can't bring myself to pay someone to do it, so I have to do it, but I hate doing it, right? And so how can we make that fun? Well, I created like naked cleaning the bathroom nights. So you can guarantee that if I'm cleaning my bathroom naked, that my spouse is going to quickly come and help me. And those have become like some of the funnest things that we do together, is naked cleaning the bathroom, or scrubbing the floor, or something that's just undesirable. Make it desirable by making it fun somehow.
That's
So
great.
that's tip number 2.
We've done naked budgeting night just to keep
Oh,
budgeting.
that's a fantastic. I love that idea.
Yeah, had to take frequent breaks, but we got our budgeting done.
Hey, you know what? Take something undesirable and make it desirable. Like that's what life's about, right? Like that's the spice of life.
That's
And
cool.
then I think my third tip would be to go on dates, but not like you got to do it the right way. Take 3 hours every single week. Do something fun together. We don't talk about kids. We don't talk about finances. We don't talk about business. We don't talk about anything stressful. We just like channel that energy of the giddy teenager who just got asked out by their super crush. You do your hair, you get ready for this date, and you just do something fun together. You just enjoy each other. Even like go roller skating or kayaking or something silly that maybe neither of you are good at, and just experience each other, laugh, have a good time. And you can get these dates themes, so like like a code name theme, or like one fun one that I came up with the other day is I was like, you should go to like a restaurant or something and like practice picking up on each other, like one liners or something like that. Like how would
Uh-huh.
you, if you saw your spouse in a restaurant sitting by herself, like how would you totally pick up on her, right? So I mean, just like do fun little things that just are sort of out of the ordinary and don't make any sense to anyone else, but are special to you. So those are my three tips.
That's great. That's awesome. In closing, let's pretend you are a couple. You get along really well. You're dating regularly. Emotional connection is great. You're getting along well. Uh, any black belt sex tips you can offer? Like, what would you say is like really advanced sex tips for a couple like that?
Ooh, this is a great question. I think I would tell a couple like that, don't have sex for 2 weeks and make it your mission to turn each other on. So like really turn on the initiating, both of you. So just initiate for 2 weeks and just like make that like a steaming hot, what do they call them, a steam
Pressure
cooker.
cooker.
Yeah, a
Uh-huh.
pressure cooker, right? And so 2 weeks you cannot have intercourse, so you can do anything but, and just
But you're flirting the whole time for the 2 weeks?
flirting, you're initiating, you're sending texts back and forth, you're teasing each other, you're doing all the things that would just set yourself up for so much arousal, but no sex for 2 weeks.
That
And then
sounds
just
like torture.
happens.
That's awesome. That's great. What's the benefit of that?
The benefit of that is learning that you can go for 2 weeks without sex and then enjoying yourselves thoroughly after that 2 weeks.
That's great. That's cool. Very good. Thank you. If people want to know more about your work, where do they find you?
So that's easy. My website is on the brighter side of marriage.com, and I spend a lot of time on Instagram at Monty Tanner1. Or you can just look up the podcast on the brighter side of marriage.
Very good. Thank you.